Hey guys, it's your boy Mark back with another video. And yes, you know me, the biggest Christopher Nolan fan of all time, the biggest Christopher Nolan fanboy that ever was. I'm sure you were waiting for this. I'm sure you were very, very, very excited to watch this. Here I am finally, y'all, giving you my review, my thoughts on the Lord and Savior himself, Christopher Nolan's latest film, released in 2023, Oppenheimer, starring Cillian Murphy, Emily Blunt, Benny Safdie, Josh from Drake and Josh, Rami Malek. There's tons of cast members I'm going to forget, and tons I might accidentally spoil are in it. But yeah, either way, the real star, as with all of his films, is the man himself, the director, Christopher Nolan. If you guys know me, you know I'm like the biggest Christopher Nolan fan ever. And by the way, I'm reading off of notes that I wrote, so if I say things in a weird order, you know what I mean? I just wrote down stuff I didn't want to forget to mention in my review. Know me, there's probably going to be some stuff I forget to mention. But yes, the Lord and Savior Nolan graced us with a film again, finally. And, yeah, yesterday, and even back in 2020 when I saw Tenet, I was thinking to myself, want to be real? And then I really did love Tenet. Really did love Tenet. Because, like, I think even in that review I did say, that, like, I know, want to be real, not just give it 10 out of 10 just because it's Christopher Nolan. And I think I said that in my Barbie review yesterday, which, by the way, check that out. I'm very proud of that review. It doesn't have many views, which very disappoints me. But I finally got back from seeing Oppenheimer, and now I can finally give you guys my thoughts on it. Now, before Oppenheimer, yo, I have given Christopher Nolan's last 8 movies before Oppenheimer all 10 out of 10. For me, he's been on an insane, unbelievable streak. And he is my favorite director of all time. He's been that way for a decade now. So, Batman Begins, 2005, 10 out of 10. The Prestige, 2006, 10 out of 10. The Dark Knight, 2008, 10 out of 10. My favorite movie of all time, The Dark Knight, is Far Out. Inception, 2010, 10 out of 10. The Dark Knight Rises, 2012, 10 out of 10. Interstellar, which I did review 9 years ago when it released, so check that out. 2014, 10 out of 10. Dunkirk, 2017, 10 out of 10. Tenet, 2020, 10 out of 10. And did Christopher Nolan manage his 9th 10 out of 10 film in a row for me personally? And I'm going to be real. I told myself, be real about how you feel about this film. Even though he's your favorite, don't just blindly always give him 10 out of 10 just because he's your favorite. I really did think all of his last 8 films before this were 10s, though. I know I've been dragging this on for a while in this review. I'm sorry. But if you're still listening, thank you. The answer to that question is no. I would not give Oppenheimer a 10 out of 10. But I would give Oppenheimer a 9 out of 10. You know, for those who don't know what this movie is actually about, you know, when it comes to my favorite director, I don't really care what his new movie is about, really. I'm just happy that my favorite director is releasing a new movie, you know? So I'll see it regardless of what it's actually about. But of course, this is the story of Robert Oppenheimer, played by the fantastic Cillian Murphy. And it's his story, the father of the atomic bomb. Basically, we get his life story, his accomplishments, and his relationships with people in his life, played by a fantastic cast, by the way. We also see it's also shot in black and white. There's several black and white scenes in this film. And don't get me wrong, Oppenheimer himself, 100% the main character. But the black and white scenes, and those scenes specifically, Robert Downey Jr., who plays Strauss, is the main character. Yes, this is the first movie of Christopher Nolan's that I have since Insomnia in 2002 that I wouldn't give a 10 out of 10. And that is absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. By the way, I'm getting to complete my Christopher Nolan collection. I am getting The Prestige and Insomnia on DVD real soon. I did buy them. Who knows, maybe I'll rewatch that. I don't think I ever watched it fully properly, if I'm being honest. Maybe I'll give it a 10 out of 10 this time. And then because Memento came up before that and was also a 10 out of 10, maybe that would have been 10 straight 10 out of 10s. That would change in hindsight, you know what I mean? Just wanted to mention. But so far, so that's 8 10 out of 10s in a row for me. Finally broken by Oppenheimer, which I would give a 9 out of 10. That is absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. Christopher Nolan, for me, is the GOAT. He's my favorite. He's the GOAT. The John Cena of movie directors. And I'll be real. Filmmaking-wise, pacing-wise, acting-wise, basically everything that makes a movie-wise, this could not have been better. Absolute perfection in all those fronts. The real problem I had with this movie, which absolutely prevents it from being a 10 out of 10 to me, it was very dialogue heavy, which I did know going in. But I don't know if just dialogue alone really makes a movie for me. It took me years to admit it, but I'm not the biggest fan of Pulp Fiction. Honestly, that movie I give like an 8 out of 10, maybe a 9. For years, I was like, yes, Pulp Fiction is one of the best things ever, but truth be told, I never really felt it, and that's 2.5 hours of talking mostly. This film is 3 hours of talking. His longest movie to date. And the talk of politics, there was stuff that they talked about, politics, courtroom stuff, science stuff that I just couldn't understand, okay? I'm not that smart. And I know Chris himself was like, try not to understand it, feel it. And in that aspect, absolutely, I could feel this movie. Christopher Nolan makes sure that you get an experience when you see a movie of his in cinemas. Because, oh man, this movie, especially in IMAX, which I saw, that's what I saw this movie in IMAX. You could feel so much. Your eyes glued to the screen. The score by, and I'm probably going to butcher it, I know I've heard his name in YouTube videos before, Ludwig Göransson. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. I might have butchered that, so I apologize. What a score. For me, the score carries the movie hard. In fact, the score is without question the main reason I would give this movie a 9. I would love to just listen to the musical score of this movie by itself. You know. Oh, that score. Beautiful. and the pacing was great too. Even though I give it a 9 and say it's by far, Nolan's weakest movie in forever, for me personally, it is still fantastically paced. 3 hours, I wouldn't say it went by like film or anything like that, but it was engaging all throughout. Even if I didn't understand what was going on, it was fully engaging. I was fully into what I was watching, etc. This movie might honestly be my least favorite Christopher Nolan film in general. I have little to no desire to rewatch this, honestly. And that has to do with, like I said, for me personally, not understanding a lot of what they were talking about. Speaking of talking, I never had this problem with Christopher Nolan movies, because I hear from so many reviews, it's never happened to me personally, but I've heard so many people say since The Dark Knight Rises in 2012. By the way, I saw a guy at the cinema that had a Dark Knight Rises shirt, which was so awesome. That they couldn't hear the dialogue for half of the movie. I've never had that problem. I don't know if something's wrong with their IMAX cinemas that they go to or something. I don't know. But for me, I've always been able to hear the dialogue all good. I just didn't understand what they were actually talking about. It was science stuff. It was politics stuff. I heard a lot more about politics in this film than I really would have liked, honestly. But like I said, the music was amazing. And like I said, this is not an action movie. This is the furthest thing from an action movie, but it is filled with lots of tension. And if anything, the music fills in for the action. Well, along with the tension, the aforementioned tension, of course. Great performances from everyone involved. I did hear about this in other reviews. There are cameos by actors that you didn't know were in this movie. And even when Oppenheimer goes to meet the president, and then when you see the actor that plays the president, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to say who it was, because that would be a spoiler, but when he showed up, I was like, oh my god, great stuff. I think this movie was non-linear, because you do go back to stuff, you see different perspectives on what happened in conversations and all that. This was non-linear. Like I said, Christopher Nolan guarantees you an experience, and I'm grateful for that. Like I said, not an action movie. Don't expect bombs flying everywhere. And no, they do. I don't know if would this be considered a spoiler? Because I've heard people mention the bomb test scene. That is in this movie, the bomb test scene. Even that movie, I've heard a lot of people say is the best scene ever. I thought it was a really good scene. I don't think it was that good of a scene personally. But you don't see the Hiroshima bombings at all. You don't see the Nagasaki bombings. You don't see that. You just hear it mentioned. But like I said, must-see experience in IMAX. Like I said, great performances all around. I just think it's inevitable that there's going to be something I'm going to forget to mention. But yeah, this might be my least favorite Christopher Nolan movie. I don't have much desire whatsoever to rewatch it, but ironically, because so far I've seen 3 movies in cinemas this year. Oppenheimer just now, obviously. Barbie, which I saw and reviewed yesterday. and Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, which I saw last month. And experience watching the movie, this was by far the best of the three, ironically. And I say that's ironic because best experience viewing watching it, but my least favorite of the three. That's a weird backwards thing. Like, Mission Impossible is still my favorite movie of the year. That was by far the weakest experience I had watching it. That's my own fault because I did choose a poor seating. I did watch it in IMAX though. Barbie, loved the recliner seat that I had for Barbie yesterday, and I gave that a 10 out of 10 actually. And this movie here, Oppenheimer, I give a 9 out of 10, but the best experience watching it out of the three, by far, out of the three watching a film, yeah. And I'm not sure if the other people I watched it with in the cinema liked it either, because there were these guys I sat next to, three guys who were with each other. And I saw a few people on their phone, like in the middle of the movie, But, yeah, there was, the guys were talking about the film right next to me. And I heard one of them say that he actually fell asleep twice. And then I heard him say that I heard him say 2 3/4. I assume that's his rating out of 5. I didn't hear the whole conversation of that part, but I assume that's what he would rate the movie. And I did hear him say, I didn't feel how I felt with this that I did with Tenet, I didn't either. I love Tenet, man. I know a lot of people don't, but I love Tenet. And this movie is not going to be for everyone. No way it's going to be for... Of course, that's every movie, but you know what I mean. Because even if you're the biggest, most diehard Christopher Nolan fan on the planet like me, there's a very strong chance you might not like it. Like I said, even if you happen to be the biggest Christopher Nolan fan on the planet, like myself. But yeah, like I said, don't expect bombs flying everywhere, because this movie is about Oppenheimer. It's not strictly about him carrying the bomb. Great visuals, though, and you do get into his mind. You do see his fears, when he thinks about, as Einstein would say in this movie, what's the word? What's the saying? The consequences of your achievements. Yeah. So yep. 9 out of 10 for Oppenheimer from me. For me. And honestly, probably my least favorite Christopher Nolan film, honestly. But, hey. Before that, for me, that was 8 10 out of 10s in a row. Nothing to be ashamed of. I love Christopher Nolan. My all-time favorite director. And if he happens to be listening to this review right now, I cannot wait for your next film, sir. I will absolutely see that thing in cinemas. Hopefully in IMAX too when it comes out. And maybe, depending on how long it takes for you to make your next film, sir, and what happens to me in my career, I would like to star in it. Doesn't have to be a big role at first. Later movies, I would like to be the main character for at least one in my dream movie. But if I got a small role in Christopher Nolan's next movie, and as long as you can tell that was a Nolanified performance, you know what I mean? My mom thought Nolan was a better way of putting it, but a friend of mine said either way works, I'm happy with that. To start, of course, to start. Yeah. So that was my review of Oppenheimer, y'all. I hope you enjoyed. And what'd you think of the movie? Let your boy Mark know below. I'll see you all later. Have a good one, y'all.